When Pixile announced their newest, biggest update for SAR Super Animal World, I was disappointed. Why? SAR is not in a good state right now. It hasn't been for a while. Many problems with SAR haven't been touched for years. Bad weapon balance, low amount of content, incredibly weak game modes, zero gameplay direction, and that's just a single tip of the iceberg here. And I don't even need to prove it when tons of exhausted players and the dying player count speak for themselves louder than my words. However, I already have a 1.5 hour long SAR review talking about all of it, so go watch it if you need more context. And the reason for those problems is so simple that it can be summed up by a single word: random. Everything Pixel ever released for SAR has zero direction whatsoever, and it clearly shows in weapon balance, mechanics, level design, and so on. So with all those problems that hurt the game, the last thing you expect to see is an update that goes in a completely wrong direction, adding bug catching, fishing, quests, an entire SAR map remade for some reason, and a huge focus on improving communications that didn't need any improvements in the first place. So, from its very first teaser, SAO expansion left a very sour taste for me, and I didn't expect anything good from this update at all. However, with the release of my SAR review, I did realize something. Even if this update would not be exactly what SAR desperately needs, it still had a lot of love and passion put into it. So it would not only be disrespectful for me to ignore it and come to SAO expansion with bad expectations before even playing the poor thing, but it would also ruin the point of making these reviews in the first place. To give an honest opinion, not biased by expectations, other experiences, and so on. That's why I decided that when SAO expansion finally releases, I'll go into it without any expectations and give it a fair chance on doing its own thing. And years later, it's showtime. Hey Foxkeepers, I'm Roro, and this is a review of Super Animal Royale SAO expansion. Turn on that full screen, grab some snacks, and let's fox dive right into it. However, SAO isn't the only thing that we'll talk about here, because Pixel thought it was not enough to add only one new map and a few new gameplay elements, and they decided to go all in and add anything their small team could handle. Count with your fingers, fellas. A new racing game mode, reworked tutorial, new UI, a ton of new mechanics, new lore longer than Lord of the Rings, and finally a chat for console players. We'll go from the smallest changes to the biggest. However, if your attention span is equal to an average YouTube Shorts viewer, then here's a timestamp for Super Animal World review. You're welcome. As for the rest of you guys, enjoy the ride. The first one on the list of changes is the new UI and main menu changes. If you watched my SAR review, you'll already know what do I think about its main menu. Unoriginal. A simple copy-paste menu from Fortnite of all things that did its job but left an epic taste after it. And it seems that Pixel heard me and redesigned the whole UI from scratch. So how does it look? Wait a minute, where the hell is the entire UI and main menu? Gone. Instead, Pixel want you to go into Super Animal World and use the main menu from there. And there's many things wrong with this, but I'll let the launch of this update speak for itself. First of all, if you are not connected to the server, you don't get to use anything. No clothes, no super animals, no photo booths, nothing. Sure, old UI was a clone of Fortnite UI, but at least it worked and it was convenient to just run the game, get the photo boost for simple green screen and close it again. Here, you're locked out of 95% of the game's content until you get into the server, which sucks as hard as a damn vacuum and infuriated a ton of people. But okay, if the menu features are all around the island, then what about milestones and so on? Glad you asked, because the second part of the new redesign is inside the new social hub, and it's a Windows 8 ripoff.
Hey! No! Stop! Just calm down! Don't...
The new main menu is now called Bananas and has a lot of stuff. The new in-world teaming, which is okay I guess, the milestones, the quest tracker, battle pass, the UI style of which looks a little Chinese, if you get what I mean, redesigned shop, challenges plus events, and the news and community tab, which is pretty useless for now, but okay. And that's about it for the redesign. Even though I didn't get to use it to its full potential, I still found it pretty comfortable and normal, I guess. Now that we're done with the new UI, our next stop would be the new tutorial.
Hey Ron. Hey Billy.
As you may know, in my SAR review I didn't mention the tutorial at all, and trust me, there was a reason why. Because it's garbage. Literal in-game tips from the characters that before SAO existed only there in the tutorial. So literally anything would look better compared to what we had, and that's precisely what the new tutorial is. After meeting the Sergeant au Pré, which for some reason has the last name of a bird that works in the office, that shouldn't be possible because super animals can have gender. That's how cartoon logic works. You fly with him on the eagle and drop off somewhere on the road. The tutorial teaches you about the complete basics. How to land on target, how to pick up guns, how to shoot, how to heal, that kind of basic stuff. You may question where's the explanation of more complex parts of the gameplay? Well, it's scattered around the SAO. There's NPCs that exist just for the sake of teaching you how this game's mechanics work. Anyway, after we defeat some enemies, we do the victory dance. Never mind, we die and respawn in the lobby, and that's about it for the tutorial. The starting cutscene has some kind of Chinese feel to it, which really seems familiar, but I can't put my paw on where I could have possibly seen it before. The tutorial does its job and it's pretty simple, but that's its biggest problem. It covers too little, and in the end, it feels so rushed that the NPCs need to finish its job later. It would have been better to have more mini tutorials that teach other mechanics, but okay. The new tutorial wasn't going above and beyond to do what it needed, but surely other parts of the update do, right? Before we'll dive into the mode itself and how it works, or doesn't, let's look back at its history a little. Back when this update was still teased 3 years ago, there were no words about the new mode, and the first time Pixel shown it was the announced trailer for the whole update. And even then, it was shown not an actual gameplay, but as an animation for a few seconds. Because of that, it wasn't possible to judge its quality yet compared to its source material, but when Pixel finally have shown the gameplay footage, this mod fell apart. However, just like with this update, I decided to still give it a fair chance to see how my criticism will hold up, and it did, but not entirely. The mode is pretty simple. You have 6 short tracks to choose from. Just kidding, because the game chooses them 40 instead. Each track happens on a different location, but doesn't have anything interesting to make these tracks any different from each other. In the source material version of this mode, tracks were built with a different system in mind, where they had shortcuts that you needed to learn how to use and obstacles that you have to avoid. But the global version doesn't have neither shortcuts, neither obstacles. The tracks feel bland and boring and just don't offer anything interesting to make them memorable, and they become just a straight line with turns and nothing else. The source material also had a mechanic, boost meter, that charges up gradually when racing through the track, but lost parts of its charge if you hit an obstacle. When it's full, however, it gave you a short burst of speed that you needed to know when to use on the tricky track properly, which made it skill-based and fun to use. In the global version, however, you'd find constant boosters on the tracks that not only kill all the purpose of the shortcuts, because using a different route other than the main one is just slower, but also made boosts just be a necessity to keep up and spam instead of something you had to learn how to control in order to get a benefit from it. But not only did Pixel fail the track design compared to the game's source material, they didn't even take notes from their own event! For those who don't know, there was an event 5 years ago. There was a HamBall race between Clog and Bemipu. The task was simple: get from one end of the map to another as fast as you can, and surprise surprise, it was fun to watch. Why? Because the track was longer, wasn't limited to a damn straight line, and had actual obstacles in it. All the parts that made this game mode fun are not present in the new HamBall tracks at all. The track design is incredibly bad and doesn't have any direction in what it tries to do, so how can you save a game mode that already has one of its core parts completely broken beyond repair? Simple, by making other core mechanic carries a skill-based gameplay instead. Meet Mario Kart power-ups. Nintendo lawyers are already coming for you, Pixel. There are 5 power-ups for our mayhem: Speed Shrooms, a Super Hit Grenade, a Sparrow, a Thunder Charge, and a Mole Strike. Speed Shrooms give you a short burst of speed and help you keep distance from other players. Super Hit Grenade can be dropped, slowing down anyone behind your handball, but it can't be countered with a single Speed Shroom. A Sparrow just does whatever it wants, I guess. A Thunder Charge gives you an infinite boost for a short period of time and usually appears when you really mess up and need to immediately get back into the race. And last but not least, the Blue Shell. I mean the mole strike, that goes through the entire map to find the first place player and slow him so that others can catch up. Sadly, you can't outrun it. Trust me, I tried. All the power-ups are doing a simple job. Balance the racer so that if you make a mistake, you won't be in a last place with no way to get back up, like one other racing game that's 10 out of 10 for some reason. The race isn't determined by whoever is the fastest and knows how to perfectly turn every race, making it fair and fun for other players. And it's a pretty huge win in my book. Still, they're mostly focused on either giving you higher speed for pretty much granted or slowing someone down instead, which makes them quite boring in the long run. The power-ups in HamBall Racing are balancing the race well and makes the race fun, but sadly nothing beyond that. As a result, HamBall Racing is fun to play and is pretty fast, but doesn't offer anything interesting or complex to make it memorable other than a fun time killer for half an hour. Was it intentionally designed for this purpose? Looking at Pixel's previous design work, I don't think so. But at least the intended way to play the mode is fun, and you don't need to make it more challenging for yourself instead, like with Walking Dead. So that's sort of an improvement there, but there's still a lot to be desired from this mode. But will the next part of this update be something that players desired? That's what we'll find out right now. You guessed it, it's finally time for the main part of this update and the entire reason why you're here. Besides just being interested in my opinion, of course. The Super Animal World. You know, with an update this big, I don't even know where to start. Oh wait, I do. From its development. The year was 2022 when Pixel dropped the roadmap for future updates. There was one weird thing that was pretty interesting to say the least. The super secret social project. Or now as you may call it, the Super Animal World itself. Pixel planned to finish this update in a year, and this was a pretty dumb expectation just looking at the scope of the whole thing. But it's not like this update can take more than a year to make, right? Release date was marked at Season 10, except it was not ready at all. The whole thing was still in a prototype phase, which says a lot about it, and its development looked something like this. So, Michael decides that it's a great idea to stop all development on Super Animal Royale and develop Saw expansion with full force. And congrats Pixel, you made the dumbest decision you could with this update, because not only you decided to repeat the same grave mistakes that Epic Games did with Rocket League, you were also killing Star in the process. For those who don't know, some years ago, Epic Games decided to make an update to Fortnite that sort of combined all of their IPs that they own, like Fall Guys and of course Rocket League. So, in order for Fortnite to have a new Rocket League game mode, Epic Games took an entire dev team of psionics and forced them to work on a game mode that didn't guarantee success at all, and the Rocket League was left without content for years. Every time there was a cosmetic update, people were begging Psionics to release gameplay updates, but nobody came. So, when Rocket Racing released, was the work worth it? Nope, the mode died months later. So now I suppose you understand why I was mad at Pixel going into the exact same pit that Epic Games once fell into. Pixel are making an update that they aren't sure will succeed and in the process are killing something that keeps them alive. Yeah, I wasn't exaggerating when I said that it's a horrible decision. Then, the update met a lot of delays and uncertain dates of release, but in the end, Pixel finally settled on the release in December 2025. And so, after all those years in development, Saw expansion is finally here. And people found a way to leak huge parts of it before the official release. How did this happen and why? Simple. Pixel gave certain content creators early access to the update. Why only certain ones and not everyone like it was before is beyond me. And it was these very content creators who leaked huge portions of the Saw expansion. But scratch them, Pixel managed to set a whole new low and ruin this update's release even further by releasing a developer's overview of the update, thereby leaking almost all of the update's content a day before the official release.
I don't need it. I don't need it. I definitely don't need it. I don't need it. I don't need it. I don't need it. I don't need it.
Okay, the content creators leaked parts of the update, no worries, but at least they didn't leak much. But Pixel, what the hell are you doing? You were cooking this update for 3 years in a fucking blender. Is it really impossible to treat it with respect and not leak literally everything before the official release? Let's start with the lore. When you first hear Super Animal World, what comes to your mind? For me, it's the island before the incident, and it sounds like an amazing idea for a DLC to SAR. Imagine this. You're exploring an island before the incident. You can see the relationship between humans and super animals, and you're given a choice whether to help create the rebellion and cause the incident, or help Sao stop it from happening. Can you imagine that? Now forget it, because the DLC happens after the incident.
What?
No, alright. I know that sounds bad.
Before we'll completely obliterate this stupid idea, let's just calm down and understand why Pixile made the decision. And there's only one reason possible: the updates. If the DLC took place in the past, then Pixile wouldn't be able to add changes to it. That's the only reason. Now for the bad side of this idea, Pixile, are you out of your mind? This decision has two problems and one personal gripe that breaks the entire plot of Stars that has been built for years. Let's start from the logical problem. Remind me, what is Super Animal World exactly? It's a park. A park that was built to entertain humans and get money through exploitation of super animals that then caused the rebellion to happen and kill everyone on the island and almost shut down the entire company with it. Do you see a problem here? Nobody ever in their sane mind would look at this idea and say, you wanna remake a park that almost shut down our company and caused our worst nightmare to appear? The entire existence of this park already makes no sense, and we haven't even looked at the second problem that's even worse: the moral problem. Super Animal World was not only made to exploit super animals, it was also made to get money for it, while cutting costs by abusing super animals. And even when Rebellion has shown that super animals want to be treated like humans through Undertale Genocide Run, SAOcorp still used that to get money through clips and the Sword Show. This had shown that SAOcorp is a messed up company that wants to get money even if it means turning super animals into slaves and torturing them. Only for SAO expansion to rebuild this park again, except this time they don't even get paid because there are no tourists anymore. The park now exists for helping super animals communicate better, even though before they obviously did not care about any super animal lives at all. And the third problem is more personal than a real one. SAR lore in the future is predictable and boring to follow. We already know that Rebellion wants to stop the Royales and kill humans, but this will never happen because then the game wouldn't exist. So what's the point of following the Rebellion if no matter what they do, their role is already decided and finished? Having Rebellion try to become an actual threat becomes boring to follow, especially if Pixel are pushing this lore for years. It would have worked if Rebels had literally anything that would look as an actual threat, but they do not. All they did was steal tickets for no reason and sing songs. The lore already doesn't look too promising, but okay, let's see what the lore has to offer. First things first, in the trailers for this update, the main plot point that becomes interesting is the places where everything is fine. And this idea is actually not so bad, because even though most of the expansion breaks SAR canon lore, it at least justifies its existence because it makes this park exist for gaslighting super animals into thinking that there isn't any important life outside of the island. And the rebellion causes things to not go the way they are supposed to, in the end revealing that they have been silently recruiting super animals around the island, which is a good plot point. And as you already know, if the lore idea is good, it's too good to be true. Yep, for the entire main story, this plot point will never be mentioned. So let's look at the main story already. We wake up in a Dogna's lab and we are sent to the Super Animal World, where we meet our first NPC, the Otter. The Otter will greet us and send us to the Governor Mooseworld, or Govna for short. Axel, that's the worst name I've heard in this game ever, I'm serious. Okay, Govna, how you want it, Pixel? We meet Govna in Super Animal World Enter and complete a series of boring side quests with pointless characters until we get to the John Murray, where the story actually begins. We meet John Murray that for some reason has the entire woods named after him, and after completing another side mission he assigns us to the South History Project, the goal of which is to get the history of the island before the incident. And through these side missions we'll be getting tiny bits of the island's lore, which sounds like a cool idea on surface if only the main story didn't consist of 80% filler content. So I'll just skip filler and get to the points where the story actually progressed, okay? The first way we'll be getting history of the island is the Lost Photos. We meet Rabita at this MoMA and it'll be asking us to find the lost rolls with pictures from before and after the incident. That's basically it. And the second way is Saw and Rebels. After completing some missions from Thomas, he realizes that Saw Army didn't pay him for his inventions yet and gives us the receipt that we need to deliver to General MacArthur. We meet MacArthur and give him the receipt. Too bad, but Saw Army doesn't have the money to pay to Thomas, so it sets you up as a spy for Rebels to steal the tickets that haven't been used for a long time and were just laying there. After gaining the Rebels' trust, you can steal the tickets and deliver them to the MacArthur. Except he'll just give them back and ask you to deliver them to Thomas. One delivery later, and Thomas realizes that the fox had scammed him. And that was the entire plotline with Saw. Just no comment. However, you didn't forget that we still have Rebels, right? Well, we report to Finch that Star Studio is working on a propaganda that is supposed to paint rebels as the villains, and that's no good. So they decide to also make one themselves. But for that, they need a filmmaker, and they know just one that's fit for the job. Werner Herzog. We find him in a tundra and ask him if he could make us a propaganda tape. And he asks us to find the lost footage from random spots on the map and brings them back to him for reveal. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Anyways, the first tape we recover and the lore is finally starting to be interesting. We see super animals digging the Super 8 in the caves under the supervision of Saw dogs. Pixile, are you sure this game is still 10+? The tape shows super animals used in slavery, but there isn't really any explanation as to why. It's literally just random super animals digging Super 8 for no reason. But at least that's something after hours of boring and not serious lore. The next tape is just garbage. And the third tape is Donk with Cheese Godara trying to escape the island. And the reason for Cheese Godara being locked up is that he was just promised a lot of money by Donk for ditching rebels, and Donk is a South spy, just what the hell? So you want me to believe that the super animals that wiped out all the humans on the island and formed the rebellion group just suddenly decided to ditch rebels for the sake of getting money? Nope, that's just straight bullshit. Thanks Pixel for ruining another rebellion later, because one idiot is good, but two is much better. What's next? Well, that was the last tape, but it's not really enough to make the full picture, so we need to help Saw finish the history project and bring it to him. We find Hole in the Star Studio and complete some quests for him, and they need us to find Dogna and get its words for the final cut of the Saw history project. We find Dogna, and after completing the side quest, we finally get something interesting. After mentioning the rebels, Dogna says that they think Saw is destroying super animals when in reality it's the only thing saving them. When the incident happened, humans wanted to kill super animals because they became a dangerous threat to their species as a whole. So Super Animal Royale made super animals fight and used that for entertainment, keeping super animals alive while also getting money for it. Humans enjoyed the entertainment and decided to let super animals live. So without the Royales, humans would have likely made super animals go extinct. And actually, it's a very good plot point. After years of nothing, we believed that Saw was the villain, exploiting super animals for the sake of getting money, which justified rebels even though they were not good either. So having a justification that Saw literally had no other choice but to force super animals to fight just so they could exist is an interesting plot point, because now both sides are right and wrong in their own way. Saw is right because they saved super animals from the extinction, and without the Royales they would have been dead, but the super animals still suffer in Royales without a choice to opt out of them or quit unless they directly work for Saw. And rebels are right because they want to stop torture on super animals, but wrong because causing human extinction just because some humans ruin their lives is just not the solution but the revenge for the sake of getting revenge. Dogna tells us to deliver that to writer at Star Studio, and we do, except Hole already knows about it through BananaOS. What? BananaOS could have just been a gameplay convenience, but it isn't. And now super animals are cyborgs with cyber implants in their brains so that they can be spied on at any time? What the fuck am I reading? Just why would you ever want to do this? Literally minutes after a good writing. It has 0 point and just screws rebels over even further. Let's just get this over with. We help Start Studio make the Saw HP final cut by giving the editor 11 lost photos that we collected and get the final cut. We deliver the cut to Govna and see it for ourselves too. However, after watching it, we are not done yet because rebels still need one for their propaganda. So we deliver it to Werner and it makes us a rebellion final cut. So we deliver it to Finch and see it too. Roll credits. Well, that was something. You may have noticed that I shortened the lore a lot, and no, it isn't just because I don't want another long review, but because the main story itself is just empty and pointless. Most of the lore consists of just quests that exist for the sake of pushing it through a new mechanic or another time waster. And the same goes for the characters, because for the entire damn story there wasn't a single different option of dialogue for any of the characters.
May not quite be the legendary SRPG.
They all have one syndrome. They never shut up about their work. All they talk about is work, so much to the point that their life is literally just work. They don't have any personal interests, motivations, anything. You know, SAR Season 2 gave me hope for character writing because of Peep. It was the only character in SAR that didn't exist just to do its job, and that was the point, to show that there was life beyond just working for rebels. And yet none of the good lessons from Peep's character have been transferred to characters in SAO, which is why listening to their dialogue is just not interesting at all. Many games have good character writing that could be taken as an example. Deltarune, Undertale, Explorers of Time. Those games had lessons that story was telling to you as a player, which is why it was interesting to listen to those characters. And yet even though there's a ton of characters in SAO, none of them are actually alive. But it doesn't even stop there, because the choice didn't even appear at the place where there was a literal perfect setup for it, the ending. When we finally gather all the information about the island's past, we could have been given a choice. To who would we give this information? To SAO, so they would continue torturing super animals? Or to CSR, so they would unravel the truths and risk super animals or humans going extinct? And yet there's nothing. And just that describes what I felt throughout the entire lore of the subdate. Nothing. There was potential to tell a story of super animals, how they got to the point where they are now, what made them hate humans, were there even super animals that liked humans in the first place? But the main story of SAO tells a story of the game, not the super animals, and breaks the normal lore that was before SAO along the way, turning super animals into cyborgs with cyber implants that are constantly being spied on, turning Cheese Godara from a good leader into an absolute idiot, and just so much more. But even with all that, the lore is forgettable. So much that in order to write the script, I had to rewatch the entire playthrough of SAO Expansion's main story again. Add to that time gates that exist only for the purpose of slowing players down in unlocking the full lore of the game in hours and realizing just how empty it is, and you get a boring, broken story with empty characters and no moral at the end of it. Just no. Okay, lore wasn't that great as it could have been, but maybe gameplay's better? Before we'll dive into the gameplay of SAO, there's two things that you have to keep in mind as it'll help us in the future. The first one is that SAO and SAR are two completely different games, even though Pixile are desperately trying to connect them together with a Chinese glue. And the second one is that before judging this update, we'll need to take a look at what Pixile wanted to achieve with this update, and there's two main goals that Pixile repeat in their newsletters like it's their new prayer. The first one is to make a new foundation for SAR, and let's just say that this idea is terrible. Not only Pixile decided to completely remove a normal foundation of the game that sort of worked for years, they decided to put an MMORPG as a foundation for a shooter game. It only takes a second to realize how horrible this idea is, but to put it simply, the fans of shooter gameplays that were able to get into the match pretty fast are now forced to be connected to the lobby just to play the damn game. And every player on launch of this update knows that it backfired horribly because the servers died 40 minutes after global release. And the second goal was to improve social communication in the lobby. But not only did this update not deliver on this goal, it made it even worse. You may think that more time for the lobbies is a good thing, but it isn't. You see, SAR's lobbies before SAO were pretty unique. Sure, there was nothing to do in the lobby, but that was the point. Because the lobby was so bare bones, anything would be better than nothing, and that became communication. But SAO removes even that, by adding a ton of pointless side quests, ensuring that players don't communicate between each other. And even then it could have been fixed by just adding more players to the same lobby, but no. Instead, the lobby consists of only 54 people maximum, meaning that most of the island will be empty and dead without people in 60% of the map. Editor Fox here, as it turns out Pixile did this player cap just so that Switch wouldn't explode. But still, SARM had way more people and it worked perfectly fine on phones that were weaker than Switch, so my guess is that it just didn't have good optimization. So, we looked at two main goals of this update and both already failed. And as for the gameplay, Here's what we have: a remade SAR map that is filled with NPCs. They give you quests, and after completing one, you get a reward. The reward is mostly Carl coins though, and
Could you pay me in advance?
Pixile actually expect you to do the most boring things just to get 40 Carl coins for it. And if the reward is higher, then the task is even more boring and grindy to complete. The quests are pointless, and they become even more pointless when you realize that a couple of HamBall races give you more Carl coins than a long quest in a half an hour in its completion. But at least the activities are fun, right? Well, not exactly. The activities you can do in SAO is fishing and catching bugs. That's it. Other activities either are grab random shit from other end of the map and bring it to me, or just gameplay mechanics that carried over from SAR, like swinging melee, sparkle roll, and so on. Since other activities are self-explanatory, let's start with fishing. When you encounter a fish NPC, you get a fishing rod, and congrats, now you can play Fishing Simulator. Simply find a nearby lake with some dead fishes, take out the rod, swing it onto the lake, and wait for the fish to start dancing. When they do, press the melee attack button to get the fish out. The mechanic is incredibly simplified, down to literal one-button gameplay that becomes boring after catching 3 fishes in a row. In the source material, however, fishing worked differently but had the same concept. Swing the rod into the lake and wait for the fish to dance foxtrot. But after it does, you have to balance the speed of pressing the melee attack button instead. Press too little, the fish gets off the hook. Press too much and you break the rod and you have to start all over again. It kept the experience fun and challenging, especially with bigger fish that took a lot of balancing to get them out. The global mechanic is simplified so much that even the fun of the mechanic is simplified straight to nothing, making it just a boring grind. You know, I'll add more salt to the wound. There's this game I've recently found called Bot World Adventure, and it also has fishing that is executed by a single button. But with each rarity of the fish, they appear for a shorter period of time. If you miss the timing, you don't get the fish. If you do, you caught the fish. Also, the spots with fishes are usable only once, which makes you switch spots more often rather than sitting your butt down in one spot for the entire time where one eye looks at the rod and second one on YouTube shorts. But Pixel did do some evolution on the mechanic by adding different water biomes where you can catch different types of fish. This is a great idea as it makes different regions have more personality in them, but it's very poorly utilized in main story and gameplay. What do you do with the fish you caught, you ask? Simple, you sell it to the fish market. I mean, you give it to the museum for storage and history purposes. You can also get some money for the fish, but only if it isn't in the Pokédex yet. The reward goes from 2 Carl coins to 150 per fish. The next one is bug catching, and you may already notice some similarities in it. You find a Hedgehog NPC, it gives you the net, you find the bug and just swing melee to catch it. The bug, however, tries to escape, and its speed and movement pattern becomes faster and more chaotic with more rare bugs. You then give it to the museum for history purposes and get the money for it. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Yep, Pixel used the same gameplay system twice, making those two almost identical, minus the way you catch stuff. The next mechanic is... The hell you mean that's it? For 3 years in development, arguably 4, Pixel only came up with 2 new mechanics for the game. And they aren't even new, but we'll get to that. The new mechanics feel grindy and repetitive, but how? Their concept sounds interesting and collecting stuff is pretty fun, so how do these mechanics fail so hard that they become not fun? Simple, because Pixel still don't understand the concept of replayability in games. And there's far more to this problem, but we haven't even seen the map yet, so let's cover that first. The main selling point of SAO is the fact that it's a world where something always seems wrong. So you expect to see at least something go wrong on the island, right? Well, just like in the lore, it doesn't. The quests that NPCs give you, like I mentioned before, are very boring and have no value to them whatsoever. And it would have made them even more annoying if you had to run around from one point of the island to another just to complete a quest. And surprisingly, Pixel did understood this and added more stations around the island. There are 12 in total, and by entering into one of them, you get into this new menu. It contains different outfits, emotes, a research lab, and most important one of all, fast travel. The most stations are scattered around the island and work sort of like teleportation points from one station to the other, but it will cost you Carl coins to use one. The price is so low, however, that it's almost non-existent, so feel free to skip exploring the island. But why would you want to skip exploring the island entirely? Because there's literally nothing new about it! Besides the new Victory Island, which is the worst realization for this idea they could have done by the way, and Hamster Ball Stadium, nothing on the island is new, so what's the point of roaming around the island that you already had plenty of time to explore already? 3 years of development for an empty island with boring quests and mostly boring lore, but you know what? I'll say that this expansion has one major flaw that ruins it completely for me, and I've hinted on this flaw for the entire review here. Since when did this update stop feeling like SAR? The island doesn't have anything to deliver on the premise Pixile set. The new mode feels random and just doesn't take any notes or inspiration from events Pixile made before. The new activities are a grind fest that isn't related to SAR whatsoever, which makes them unrealistic. How am I supposed to believe that the same super animals that commit war crimes in Royales in SAO are perfectly fine with zero post-Royale trauma? Just how? This whole update, it feels as if it wasn't even made by Pixile but by a different studio. And you know why? Because it was. Way back when Pixile released their first roadmap with a slight hint of what they are working on, Super Animal Royale Mobile, a game made by iDream Sky and licensed by Pixile, has released their own Super Animal World, Sub-City as I like to call it. And oh look, it has fishing, shops as a location, a HamBall Racing game mode, a whole new island to explore, and so on. And when you look at Super Animal World from this angle, it all starts to make perfect sense. The activities that don't fit our universe at all, a game mode that also doesn't make sense to have, and the entire update suddenly going into the calm direction. And I don't know how to react to it. From one side, it's terrible. South City was a part of SARM, its own exclusive. Something I miss from console games nowadays is the different ports of high-end games. Portable consoles at the time didn't have enough power to literally just port a PC game on them. So they were different games completely and it was awesome. Re-experiencing the game you loved on a different console was making these consoles as well as games unique in their own way, and SARM was just that. Sure, it was mostly a port of the PC game, but it had its own changes that made it different, and not just an empty nothing burger for consoles. Looking at you motorsporting devs, because the fact that Super Animal World, in order to succeed, takes crucial parts from a different game and just does them again without any creativity or different vision is scummy. Like I said before, in order to copy something and have it be loved, it needs to have innovation. Something different that makes it unique, but SAO just has nothing. And even if it does at some parts of it, it never expands on them, leaving these parts incredibly undercooked and disrespectful to the original idea. But from the other side, let's face it, SAR Mobile is dead, which means that no one, not even Chinese players, will be able to play on South City ever again. So the fact that Pixel made SAO expansion be similar to South City can be counted as a tribute to it of sort. So I'll let you decide whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. However, this update aims to improve replayability of the update, with a whole new gameplay loop to it, so surely this part of the update works as intended, right? The new gameplay loop, the Circle of Super Life as Pixel call it, works something like this. Play a main Battle Royale game mode, then relax at the hub, and then go back to play the main modes. And to inexperienced players, it may seem like a good plan, but don't be fooled, because this plan makes zero sense. First of all, remember what I said before? SAO is an MMO lobby, not a shooter game. So Pixel are literally trying to force a gameplay of a completely different genre with a completely different audience on the fans of shooters, who just want to shoot people already. How do I know it's terrible strategy? Well, first of all, I'm no stranger to making content for completely different audiences. I mean seriously, 60% of my audience is SAR fans, and as you can see, they don't really carry over from one niche to the other. But the fact that Pixel expect people to carry over from one genre to the other is complete BS. But okay, maybe the modes are well integrated and based upon each other to make the transition between both modes smooth, like Sonic Frontiers does it with cyberspace and open world?
No.
Instead, SAO makes itself the main game, while SAR is just an optional experience. None of the elements in SAR force you to play SAO, and not a single element in SAO forces you to play SAR. And even when it does, it feels just that, forced against your will instead of your own choice to play these modes. But one major question. Did any of these changes that SAO expansion brought even hit the main replayability problems of SAR in the first place? No? Then we still have a problem. The matches are still boring with nothing to make them interesting. The queue for matches takes even longer now. That needs its own set of applause in my opinion, with even less players playing. And the quests that were supposed to be the reason why people come back to the game simply do not work. And the reason is pretty simple. A low price of nothing at all, I mean Carl coins. 40 Carl coins for quests that take hours to complete? Why the hell would you want to waste your time doing boring side quests when SAR is literally right there? And even then, Pixel had an opportunity to make them useful by adding an option to farm animal DNA of your choice, making it less of a grind to get them. But of course, Pixel never did it. So why bother when literally any other mode is more fun and gives you more for less time instead? Said the players and quit after a week of the update release. The update replayability failed because Pixel didn't know what they were doing. They made an update for an audience that was never there in the first place. Which, you know, kinda reminds me of a different game that was also made for an audience that was never interested in the first place, and as you can see, people rage quit as soon as the game didn't meet their expectations. Pixel poured a ton of budget into the animations, the trailers, and so on, but the main gameplay itself is lackluster and not fun, and as you can see, people didn't stay. This is why Sau's replayability doesn't work, and the whole Pixel circle of super life sounds like bullshit. It never makes Sar or Sau be interesting for anyone to play, so when it comes to the decision to play or to not, people choose to not. You know, after seeing a lot of what gameplay is bad at, and seeing the poll results, let's take a break and look at something that is always great, and that's music. We're not gonna waste too much time here. Of course the composer for this update is Catbox. However, since the genre of the game has made a transition, the music also had to make according changes. The main theme of Sau, if you forget about the trailer that is calm and relaxing, and the new tracks reflect that pretty well, but most fail to stand out. Let's start with Sau's main theme, the one you'll hear in most of the locations that aren't a spot on the map, and it's pretty good. It feels playful and experimental, which really fits into exploring the island. Up next is Hideaway Boondocks, and pulls down the best track in the entire update. It sounds normal and ordinary at first, until the leitmotif of Pete's song breaks down the door and mixes with the ambient, making the track not only enjoyable but also unique and memorable. Third place for me takes up the mall station ambient. It's just so relaxing, which really fits into the place that is supposed to work like a rest place after exploring the island. Sadly, that's all the tracks that are memorable. Others just fit into the locations well, but don't stand out in any way, making them just okay. The tracks fit into the locations well, but for most of them I just can't find myself listening to those after I'm done playing the game. However, we're not done with music just yet, because Pixel made a change that I don't know how to explain. It's either Pixel actually watched my Star review, Nah, that can be it. Or Pixel had the same thoughts about this issue as I did. If you watched my SAR review, you may remember that one major gripe that I had with SAR soundtrack is that most of the tracks just weren't used in the game. So why did I bring it up again? Well, in the new Victory Island, yup, the one that is very empty and mediocre in my opinion, there's a VIP zone that you get access to, as well as the entire island after winning a single Battle Royale match. The access to the island is only for 24 hours, but that's not important. In the new VIP zone, there's lots of fun stuff, but the main attention point here is the jukebox, that, as you already guessed, plays the entire SAR soundtrack, both used and unused music in the game. And gotta say, it's a really great way to fit all the unused SAR tracks into the game, that also can be pretty canon. Hats off to you, Pixel! The music in SAR really fits into the island's chunks because each specific chunk has its own exclusive theme, giving the chunks more personality. But only specific ones, because for only God knows what reason, only some of the chunks were worthy of getting an ambient theme. What about most of the other locations? Well, they play the main theme of course, and I do not understand this decision at all. You already committed to making different themes for the locations, but why only specific ones? You definitely did not have lack of time and reuse the same island again with all the locations locked in place already, so just why not? One more thing I forgot to mention is the ambient changes in the world, like rain, snow, and so on. These changes are neat to have, but they don't interact with the world in any way, nor do they affect you as a player. So in the end, just like most of the soundtracks, they become forgettable. The music in SAO is great and really tries its best to make a better atmosphere of exploring the world, but the gameplay itself just doesn't, which ruins any attempt music was trying to do, especially when there's no emotional story to back it up. The reason why Pete's song worked so well with SAR is because it told a story, or rather a possibility of a different story, where super animals lived peacefully, without royales ruining their lives. And yet SAO expansion itself has nothing to tell players at the end, so even the most emotional music cannot undo the emptiness SAO has. The music and ambient changes are really great to have, but sadly that's all they can do. After a pretty long review, what can I say about SAO expansion? Is it a bad update? No, not really. At its core, it's exactly what's advertised. A cozy game with simple mechanics, communication with friends, quests that give you rewards, and a lore that someone might find interesting. And maybe somewhere there's an audience that wanted to see this happen. But for me personally, this update is a total miss. It doesn't try to fix SAR's problems and instead breaks what already worked. The removal of main menu makes things that were easy incredibly tedious and annoying. New foundation for SAR removes communication, increases waiting time, dead lobbies, and adds pointless quests that were supposed to make SAR more replayable but do the opposite. Adding to that suspicious relationship to SAR, plus the gameplay that doesn't fit SAR's universe at all, and you really start to wonder if Pixel were making this DLC for Super Animal Royale in the first place. But even if we forget about SAR and judge SAO expansion as a standalone game, it's just okay. It reminds me of the situations that happened with Need for Speed Most Wanted 2012. Sure, the game that turned out to be isn't as bad as the reviewers claim and can be fun for players regardless of the original. But when you find out that on the place of a tiny, unfinished stub, you could have a direct sequel to one of the best Need for Speed games. Also no, Carbon doesn't count because it's a completely different game. Any defense in direction of that game falls apart. And the same I can say for SAO expansion. Just like SAR, Super Animal World is only a mere shadow of what it could be. It could have written characters with different stories to tell, with the main story being more serious and have something to tell player at the end of it. The gameplay could have had more variety and mechanics rather than relying on time gains and RNG gambling to artificially increase player time but not engagement. And the island could have had more to explore rather than reusing the same island for 6 years but adding nothing new to it. And this is what hurts me more than any problem with SAR or SAO expansion. It isn't its rushed or buggy state, lack of variety in gameplay mechanics, empty story or unfinished island, but the single fact that this game could have been much better than it released. SAO and SAR both have a lot of potential and good ideas, and yet Pixel never bothered to make their own research and execute them well, creating yet another DLC with random changes that mostly shoots the game into its own legs and hurt it even more. Sure, there's nothing wrong with enjoying SAO in its current state, and if you enjoy it, good for you. But if you're a fan of Super Animal Royale, then SAO expansion is the biggest update SAO ever had that has nothing there for you. And as for me, from a DLC that calls itself Super Animal World, I wanted to see the island before the incident, and if this part barely exists in this update, if exists at all, then there's nothing there for me to see. You know, I don't really want to end this review on a bad note, so I'll say this. When this update released, I saw something in SAR community that I haven't seen for a long time. It's people actually saying the truth. Not trying to hide SAR's problems like it was with Season 8, actually talking about the game and its problems. Many people voicing their dissatisfaction with SAO update and its issues, and I love it. SAR isn't a perfect game, it never was. And yet instead of fixing the main problems that kill the game, Pixile and the community ran from that instead, leaving content creation scene in shambles with nothing to make content on unless milk it out of a thin air, which isn't worth it by the way, and leaving players without balanced gameplay, more maps, and actual game direction. And only SAO update was the turning point for many, the one that has shown that Pixel don't know what they are doing and where they're supposed to lead the game next. Like I said before, zero game direction. And people are finally fed up with it. They want change for the better, and voicing their actual opinion is the one massive step towards that goal. In my SAR reviews, I try to highlight these issues as much as I can, not because, oh look, this game is bad and unpolished, but because they haven't been addressed for years, and it hurts the players and the game. I know that Pixel won't actually watch my SAR reviews, but if they at least brought more attention to SAR's issues and made people talk about them, then in my opinion, my SAR reviews have fulfilled their role. This time, the criticism of the update is massive, and I hope that at least this will reach Pixel and make them rethink their choices with SAR, and you can help with that too. Spread the word, talk about SAR's issues, criticize the game wherever you can, but keep it away from toxicity. That's a different kind of worms that doesn't help at all, so keep it constructive. It may not be much, but maybe this time, it will be enough. Thanks for watching this very long review. I know I have promised not to make it a long one, and believe me, I tried. I threw out like 50 finished scripts just because they were too long. But this update is just too massive to not talk about it in an hour video. This review took way too long to make, and there are a lot of reasons why, but the main ones are the issues in life and the lack of something to say about this update really. And yet, I don't really regret it, because for all this time I had, I was able to say what I wanted to say about SAO and be proud for it, and that's worth it. The next review on the horizon is of course Stardew Valley from the YouTube poll, then third seasons from 1 to 3, and the Tunic review. You may notice that a lot of the games here aren't really related to SAR, and that's because I'm quitting SAR. And I don't mean completely like most people got used to understanding this phrase as, I'll still be making SAR content, but only when I feel like I want to make some, because you may notice that some of my SAR videos felt forced, and that's exactly the case. SAR didn't have any reason to make content about for a very long time, and I've done everything I could with it. I talked about theories, although there's still some I hinted on but never got to make, made some montages, even collabs, I talked about SAR, and of course I talked about the state of the game with my reviews and separate videos. There's nothing else for me to make content about, and I don't want to force content out of me like most SAR content creators do, milking challenges, tournaments, and montages, because last time I tried, it didn't work out so well. By the way, I don't have anything against people who do this, it's just not what I want to do with this game, honestly. I feel like SAR is a game that's holding me back. It's dead, doesn't have much content, and recently I only got another confirmation of that being the case, where my random shitpost montage for a different community got way more attention than my final.fox video on SAR community. I feel like it's the right time for me to try new horizons and see what they have to offer. My channel was never supposed to take off this much, really. I made it as a joke and never expected that it would lead me to such an amazing journey through SAR community. I'm grateful to everyone who was with me on this journey, and I hope to see you here again in the future. I don't know how it will work out yet, and if it will at all, but you know what I like to say, a start is a start somewhere. For now, that's all from me, Keepers. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day!